of Management Studies, IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course MMPC-001 Management Functions and Organizational Processes for MBA program. Presenting Block 4, Organizational Processes, Unit-13, Managing Change, Part-1.
After completing this unit, you should be able to understand the concept of change management, understand the nature of change, list out the types and models of change, understand the process of change, analyze the reasons for the resistance of change, highlight the strategies to overcome change, understand the forms of change, identify the strategies of evaluating change, appreciate the role of a change agent, understand the concept of OD, and list out the OD interventions. Introduction. As the adage goes, the only constant in life is change. Usually, 3 facts about change are often heard in organizations: that it is everywhere, that it is constantly present, and the speed with which change is taking place. This being the reality, almost everyone is nervous about change. People dislike change and resist change as a natural response. But in reality, change is inevitable, and the cost of change would be very dear if people dislike change. Thus, there is no choice other than to welcome change and devise strategies to tackle the challenges and survive in the fast-changing contemporary scenario. The concept. The concept of organizational change refers to the changes that occur across the organization. It implies that the change brings in a fundamental orientation in the way that the organizations use a certain process or issues, thereby bringing in a change in the way it is carried out in business. It does not include minor changes like adding a new person in the group, modifying a program, etc. Examples of organizational-wide change includes change in the mission, implementing new technologies, restructuring the operations, mergers and acquisitions, right-sizing and downsizing, introducing new programs like TQM, re-engineering, etc. The key drivers. Organization-wide change is a part of business strategy to accomplish the goals of the organization. The key drivers are: Number 1. Technological innovation, forcing the organization to upgrade their platforms. Number 2. Cutting down the cost to remain competitive. If the cost of one factor of production goes up, it brings about a change in the overall cost, thus forcing the organization to innovate and reduce the cost. Number 3. Competition and competitive advantage has forced organizations to perform for organizational survival and growth. Number 4. Competitive advantage presupposes faster decision-making, thus making the organizations to change the structures, processes, and styles of functioning. And number 5. Global culture requires organizations to adapt and evolve to integrate the diversity into the business and the business operations. Nature of change. Change can be understood better if we look at the nature of change. The nature of change is: Number 1. To make or become different, give or begin to have a different form. Number 2. Dissatisfaction with the old and belief in the new. Number 3. Underlines qualitatively different way of processing, thinking, believing to improve from the past. Number 4. Continuous and intrinsic. Number 5. Can be patterned and predictable. Number 6. Dual and bipolar, leads to change for the good or leaves stagnated. And number 7. rate of change is faster. Thus, each of the elements makes us understand change in its various connotations. Process of change. Organizational experience indicates that organizations are undergoing major changes quite frequently, although smaller changes occur continually. However, there are no signs that this pace of change will slow down. The processes thus assume significance in this context. The process can be divided into three broad areas. Number 1. Preparing for the change. An organization has to address the concerns like why do we need change? What would be the difference between the current and the changed state? What is to be changed? What components will be affected and which will not be? Number 2. Beginning the change process. The organization must firm up the strategy being used for change, identify ways of operationalizing the change while beginning the change process. To do this, the organization must position change as a challenging target and needs to identify how to minimize the impact of losses experienced by those who are most affected by the change in the organization. And number 3, firming up the changes into the system. During the firming of the process, the organization must ensure that all the subunits are aligned properly with the desired outcomes. All the stakeholders are fully aware of the outcomes of changes and have an understanding of the process. The organization must also ensure that all those who involve will play their prescribed role in planning and implementation. Thus, an organization can approach change in a planned and systematic way, exactly identifying where it wants to find itself after going through the process of change. Models of change. Various models have been suggested to explain the process of change. The most important of them are: Number 1. Kurt-Lewin's model. Lewin specifically considers a three-stage process of managing change, taking clue from the analogy of ice. They are unfreezing, changing, and refreezing. The first stage involves creating a level of dissatisfaction with the status quo, which creates conditions for change to be implemented. The second stage requires organizing and mobilizing the resources required to bring about the change. The third stage involves embedding the new ways of working into the organization. Thus, this model considers that change involves a move from one static state through a state of activity to another state of status quo. Number 2. Beer's model. Beer and his colleagues advocate a model that change is more complex and therefore requires a more complex but still a uniform set of responses to ensure its effectiveness. The model prescribes a 6-step process to achieve change. They concentrated on task alignment, whereby employee roles, responsibilities, and relationships are seen as key to bring about situations that enforce changed ways of thinking, attitude, and behavior. The stages are: mobilize commitment to change through joint diagnosis, develop a shared vision of how to organize, foster consensus, competence and commitment to share the vision, spread the word about change, institutionalize change through formal policies, and finally monitor and adjust as required. Number 3. Shaw's model. Shaw, in his article entitled Intervening in the Shadow System of Organization in 1997, argues that change is complex and evolutionary. As the change evolves, they tend to be messy because of the number and variety of changes that are introduced. Hence, the status quo is not the starting point for change management. It evolves and adapts to the environment of change. The elements according to this model in the change process are: Number 1. Understand the change drivers. Number 2. What are the change levers for change strategy? Number 3. Understanding the change context. Number 4. Develop a picture of the organization. Number 5. Appropriate plans for change. Number 6. Selecting the change agent or leader for the change process. Next is ADKAR model. ADKAR model is a goal-oriented change management model that allows change management teams to focus their activities on specific business results. This model was initially used as a tool to determine if activities like communication and training had the desired results during organizational change. According to this model, effective management of people dimension requires 5 key goals that form the basis of ADKAR model, that is ADKAR model. Those 5 goals are: number 1, awareness of the need to change. Number 2, desire to participate and support the change. Number 3, knowledge of how to change and what the change looks like. Number 4, ability to implement the change on a day-to-day basis. And number 5, reinforcement to keep the change in place. The 5th model is Kotter's model. Kotter, in his article Leading Change in 1995, has introduced a number of steps in his model of change process. The steps include: number 1, creating urgency. At this stage, the organization identifies threats and develops scenarios to show what might happen in future. The opportunities to exploit, discuss, talk, and thought process helps in eliciting external support. 75% of the effort comes from the organization in creating urgency for change. The organization, Kotter says, has to work hard in step 1 for achieving success. Number 2, a team or influential people. They are required irrespective of hierarchy to initiate or manage change. The team must include true leaders who can demonstrate emotional support and team building from across the organization. Number 3, create a vision for change. Why change? This question is answered because organizations consider their values as central to change. What changes changing the future scenario determines the strategy to implement. Number 4, communicate the vision. Kotter says that organizations need no special meetings to communicate the vision, but it is done in daily activity for people to remember, assimilate, and accept, leading to change. Number 5, remove blocks. Resistance to change is taken care of by having structures and mechanisms to empower the employees to help the change move forward. Number 6, quick wins. Change interventions would lead to short-term goals, not long-term in nature, thus contributing to quick wins. Number 7, no room for failure. An attempt has to be made to choose projects which result in runaway success so as to instill confidence. Number 8, build on change. Confidence building measures and success ensures the organization to analyze what went right, set goals, improve continuously, and add new change agents. And number 9, add to the core. Initiating and implementing change resulting in success must lead to make change to stick so that it becomes the core of the organization and becomes part of corporate culture. Kotter's model thus argues for change that sticks to the organization. Next is McKinsey 7S model. McKinsey model focuses on 7 internal factors which are to be aligned and reinforced for change leading to organization effectiveness. A change in one element affects the other, thus requiring new organizational design. The elements are values, strategy, structure, systems, skills, staff, and style. For instance, any change in the strategy will force the organization to make changes to the strategy and so on. And the last is Ross 5-stage model. Kubler-Ross, in his book Death and Dying, known as Change Curve, underscores the need for focusing on the internal factors. It helps to understand the stages of personal and organization change. This process demonstrates the different reactions to help them to transition towards change. Thus, these different models will have implications on the way organizations and their leaders view change and the way they manage change. Finally, it impacts the effectiveness of any change initiative. Resistance to change. Change is inevitable and the pace of change is increasing day by day. Consciously or unconsciously, people dislike change and hence they resist change. Organizational issues and individual or group resistance to change are normally cited as reasons for resisting change. Organizational issues. Organizations do not always undertake individual change initiative as part of the wider change plan. For example, linkages between strategy, structure, and system issues have to be established as part of a changed plan. Therefore, a change that considers a new structure but fails to establish the need to introduce new systems to support such a structure is less likely to succeed. Similarly, lack of effective project management and program management discipline can also lead to a shortfall in timings in achievement of desired outcome and project delivery. Insufficient training in the relevant areas, for example, in project management, leadership skill can also negatively impact on the effectiveness of the change initiative. Poor communication has also been linked to issues surrounding the effectiveness in achieving change in various ways. A change that is imposed and not communicated properly and on time can lead to a greater employee resistance. Finally, the lack of effective leadership has been identified as an inhibitor of effective change. Individual or group resistance to change. Resistance is understood as an expression of reservation which normally arises as a response or as a reaction to change. Management often interprets these actions as employees attempting to stop or alter the change. Resistance can take different forms from subtle undermining of change initiatives, withholding of information, to active resistance like strikes. Resistance can be individual versus collective, passive versus active, direct versus indirect, behavioral versus verbal, and minor versus major. Normally, an organization experiences two broad types of resistance: resistance to the content of change and resistance to the process of change. In addition, there are other reasons for resistance. According to Ferguson and Green, a number of factors cause resistance to change in an organization. They are: number 1, the fear of unknown. People resist because of the fear of what is in store for them. Due to the uncertainty about the nature of change, one does not know what is in store for him in future and what exactly would happen in the current situation. Number 2, loss of control. Change is directed towards an individual, group, or organization. When it is directed towards the individuals have very less or no say in the process and the interventions directed to them. The fear of no control on the events that are unfolding makes people resist change. Number 3 is loss of face. Employees feel embarrassed as a result of change to realize that what they have done in the past was wrong and that organizations intervene to change those wrong actions or decisions. Number 4, loss of competency. When changes are attempted, the existing skills and competencies will no longer be used, thus making the people think that they have to put in a lot of effort and hard work to learn new skills and competencies in the changed situations. Number 5, need for security. Security is one of the important concerns for every employee. The very fact that change is taking place in the organization causes a concern in the minds of the people about their position, status, role, etc. Number 6 is poor timing. Since change is a continuous process, organizations initiate and implement changes continually. The very fact that one has to get into a change mode again after a recent change causes employees to think about the timing of changes that take place in the organization. Number 7, loss of the comfort zone. People are comfortable in doing their work following their existing routines or habits. The very thought of change in the existing ways of doing their work makes them feel that they are out of their comfort zone. Number 7, lack of support. It is not enough if changes are initiated, but they should be executed properly. Poor execution leads to scarce resources, which make the employees feel that they will not have enough support in the change scenario. Number 9 is lack of confidence. Any change presupposes extra effort on the part of the employees to get used to the changed situation. It takes a while for them to settle down in their routine to build their confidence levels in their work. And last is lingering resentment. Not all changes are organization-wide. In some instances, it is possible for an organization to design and initiate a change in one unit or department. In such cases, the other people in the other departments or units might feel that they are avoided or overlooked. Even when organization-wide changes take place, covering all the employees or units, there is every chance for the same sentiment to recur among those who have been brought into the change management process. In addition, studies have also cited political factors like favoritism, management factors like poor management style, individual factors like personality factors, group factors like group cohesiveness, herd mentality, and organizational factors like increased workload, unknown challenges, etc. as some other reasons for resisting change in organizations. Strategies to overcome resistance. Organizations use different strategies to overcome the resistance to change. They are: Number 1. Normative re-educative strategy. This approach believes that changing the norms, attitudes, and values of the individual would lead to changes in their behavior. It is based upon targeting their core beliefs, values, and attitudes. It is expected that change will occur as individuals change their beliefs, values, and attitudes, which makes them behave differently and accept change. Number 2 is rational empirical strategy. This strategy is based on persuasion. It assumes that individuals are rational, and as such, if the benefits of change are made clear to them, they would change in their own self-interest. The benefits of change need to be highlighted and sold to them as being of personal benefit to them. Number 3 is power coercive strategy. This strategy is based on the application of power in the belief that people comply and change to those who have greater power. And number 4 is action-centered strategy. This strategy focuses on problem solving, looking at problems, and focusing on remedial action. Innovative firms take an integrated approach to problem solving by showing a willingness to view problems as a whole and in the solutions to challenge established practice and view change as an opportunity rather than a threat. Thus, organizations use different strategies which are used as appropriate in the different stages of the change process. In addition, organizations also use certain techniques to improve the acceptability of change, facilitating easy transformation. Continuous learning through change, effective communication, the power of informal structures, understanding the rationale for change are all a few techniques that organizations use to seek the support of the employees in the process of change management.
You were listening to the audiobook by the School of Management Studies, IGNOU, for MBA program. Course code MMPC-001, Management Functions and Organizational Processes. Course Coordinator, Professor Srilata, School of Management Studies, IGNOU. Voice over by Harpreet Kaur. Edited by Tarannum Jahan. Program assisted by Jagbandhu Jana. Program produced by Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.